First, though, ever been wildly excited by a new gadget, only to find that you should have saved your money because it really wasn't all it was cracked up to be? 3D TV looks set to join the likes of Betamax on the list of home entertainment formats, which are now extinct. Sony and LG have both announced they're giving up on 3D compatible televisions, meaning no major manufacturers are now making them. Guy Cocker is the global editor-in-chief of Stuff, the technology magazine and website, and joins us now. Hi, Guy. Good evening.
Evening, Mark.
Were you ever a fan of the 3D TV?
I think the only experience that sticks in my mind that I really enjoyed in 3D was seeing Avatar at the movies, that James Cameron film, which was very much created for 3D. Now we're at the stage, whatever it is, sort of 8 years later, where every single movie that comes out is converted into 3D, but it's not really ever intended to be viewed in 3D. And I think that's what's symptomatic of the state that we're in now, where you've got Sony, like you said, Sony, Samsung, and LG, the three biggest TV manufacturers in the world, saying we're not going to make 3D TVs anymore because it's not a feature that people really care about in their home, at least.
Did it ever really take off on the small screen? I mean, I do remember we all did traipse to the big screen and put our 3D specs on, but what about within the home?
It never did. No, I mean, it's one of those things where there were too many different barriers to enjoying 3D content in the home. First of all, in the cinema, it's a passive technology, which means you can take just standard 3D glasses. I'm sure everyone who's listening has used them, and they don't need to be battery powered. In the home, they traditionally, most of the TVs that I used, they needed to be battery powered. So you'd always have this situation where you felt a bit silly putting on the spectacles. You needed to make sure that you had batteries, and invariably one set had died. You only got two pairs with your TV, and the average home has at least four people in it. The 3D Blu-rays that you would buy cost more. Content providers like Sky stopped supporting it a few years ago, so there were always so many reasons not to use them. And I think still people in their home, where people can see them in a cinema, it's a dark environment. You don't feel so silly about wearing these glasses, but in the home, it's a different experience. And I certainly, for one, always felt a little bit strange putting on these glasses and watching television. It just felt like a very strange experience.
Well, indeed. But let's go back to cinema then, because as you said, it's easier to put the specs on in the dark, and if everybody else is doing it in a 400-seater cinema, then why not? But if all Hollywood is reimagining their movies for 3D rather than starting from the premise that they're going to make a 3D movie, I mean, can it really be sustained?
Well, it's sustained in the cinema because there are quite a few people that will pay extra because they're kind of going out of their home, they're going out for a certain experience. And the movie industry, at least in the cinema, at least knows that people will pay slightly more for that 3D experience. I, again, personally don't get too much out of it, but I know a lot of families, especially if they're watching animations, that do enjoy watching it in that 3D experience. And cinema is, like everything else these days, all about the upsell. So if they can upsell you a bigger screen, they'll do that. If they can upsell you 3D version of the film, people will pay for it. They will do, and so that really pays for the 3D conversion process. But what it means is, and it's a small point, but it's very important that the filmmakers who are making these films, they intend them more chances than not. They intend for them to be displayed in a 2D format. So once they're converted by a separate company into 3D and extra effects are added, it means that it's not really close to what the original filmmakers intended. Now that's a bit of a cinema nerd talking there, but really it was only James Cameron and a couple of others who really pioneered 3D with his movie Avatar and really imagined it for it to be viewed in 3D. But even he is saying now that the 3D movement is over, and it really is down to the fault of the content makers. They're just not making movies specifically for 3D anymore, and so I think that's only going to get worse now that TV manufacturers have stopped making the TVs as well.
I suppose somebody in your position must have all manner of gadgets cluttering up your home. Are there any that you think, oh my goodness, they were really overhyped?
Well, for one, on Stuff Magazine, we gave our home gadget of the year to the Amazon Echo. Now, there's a lot of these, Amazon Echo, Google Home. There's a lot of these smart voice activated control units that they're making their way into the home. They are very cool. I've got one sitting in my bedroom as I speak to you right now, and I can say to it, turn my heating up or turn my lights off or set certain mood lighting. But I find like 1 out of 2 times it doesn't quite recognize your voice commands, or it gets something wrong and it sets your lights to 50% when you meant 60%, whatever it is, it's not quite there yet. So I think while we're all getting very excited about the interconnected smart home and being able to control everything with our voices, I think that's the one thing that actually just needs to get a little bit better. And again, it's the same thing as the 3D specs. I feel a bit strange if there's anyone else in the home sort of talking to this, this discombobulated AI in the background. It just feels a little bit odd. But I live with a couple of people who feel a lot more comfortable with it. I prefer using my mobile phone to control my home. But yeah, I don't think it's quite there yet.
Okay, well, I'll hold off from buying an Alexa or whatever she's called just yet. Anything that you think should have caught on, but for some reason didn't?
I'd say it's actually one that's connected to 3D televisions, which is virtual reality. Now, we got really excited. I'm a technology journalist, get to see cool products all the time, but there's only a few instances where you feel as though you're kind of witnessing the future firsthand. One of the great things I've got to experience in the last year was self-driving cars. So going on the motorway and getting a car driving itself. This one was made by Tesla. Phenomenal experience as long as you get comfortable with that. But actually, the one that I say I'm really surprised hasn't caught on yet is virtual reality. It still feels as though, again, the same problem with 3D TV. A lot of people feel uncomfortable putting a headset on, but once you do, there are some phenomenal ones that have been released by the likes of Oculus, HTC Vive. The experience of being in a virtual world in a headset is absolutely phenomenal. It just again seems like there's a social stigma attached to it, as well as you needing quite expensive hardware to get it up and running. But I see in the future, virtual reality essentially jumping over traditional televisions, whether they're 3D or not, and becoming the new way to play video games, to watch concerts, or to watch your favorite sporting events. And then you get to see so much cool stuff at events like the Consumer Electronics Show in January. Pet tech, you get like Fitbit trackers for pets that tell you whether your pet is happy or sad, whether it's eaten or how to drink water or whatever. You get to see lots of crazy tech which you've never any idea whether it's going to take off or not.
Bet.
I would say the pet tech is probably not going to take off.
That's such a shame because I quite like that for my
I know,
dog.
it's a cool idea, right?
Guy, great to talk to you. Thanks so much for coming on. All the best to you. Guy Cockers from Stuff, the technology magazine and website, VR Virtual Reality. Have you seen the size of those goggles you have to wear? I tell you what, if you're embarrassed wearing the 3D specs in the cinema, there's no way you're going to take off with a VR headset attached to your head. But then, maybe I'm wrong. I did, when I was younger, I used to collect all these things. Walkmans, mini discs, iPods of all sorts of varieties. I've still got them all. They're all in a box. Never throw any of them away. You never know, they might come back into fashion again.